How we doing, hockey fans? And welcome to episode number 75 of Marty's Illegal Stick Hockey Podcast, recording here on Wednesday, May 4th, 2022. 75 episodes. I can't believe it. We made it 75. Isn't there some kind of like special anniversary for the 75th?
Silver anniversary. No, what is that? I don't know.
That was
what
a
it
diamond
is.
anniversary.
No,
was it?
Something.
You didn't give me a diamond, did you?
You finally done more episodes than I've done years.
Wow, that's saying something.
Yeah.
Now that's staying power.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, boy. Well, we have got an awesome show lined up for you. And before I bring our guest in, Jeremy's not going to be, well, he might be here a little later on. He's got lacrosse practice with his kids, so he's going to try to get here. I tell you, that guy runs from practice to practice to practice.
Yeah.
You know, but hey, good for him.
We've heard it before.
Hey, absolutely. You know, and actually his kid's a heck of an athlete. So, I mean, that's
good.
So, you know, good for him. But as always, by my side, I have my trusty producer, the man who always pushes all the right buttons and pushes mine sometimes as well.
I try.
Mr. Dave, the Save Warner. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good. Fantastic.
Yeah. You ready for this or what?
I'm ready for this.
All right.
This will be a good show.
It is. It's going to be a lot of fun because making his return appearance. This is like the third time he's been on this show. We just love having him on. He is he's an
Either
AHL
that
expert.
or you can't get anybody else.
No, absolutely not. I'll tell you. And this is well, I couldn't just stay here with you the whole time, right?
This is true.
Yeah.
Hey, I carried your butt last time, so.
Well, you know, we'll have to talk about that later on.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
Boy, anyways, he is, to me, he is an AHL expert. There is no doubt in my mind about that. He's the co-host of the Calder Farmstead and AHL Podcast, and the only guy that I know that does analytics for the AHL. It's Mr. Sean O'Brien. Sean, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's always fun coming on with you guys, talk about the Utica Comets and beyond. But yeah, it's been a long season. There are definitely things that I was talking with Cece about where it's like, that was this season still.
Yeah.
Oh man. Like it's you forget because it's been so long since we've had a full regular season that it's a grind, but like the playoffs are here. I'm super excited. We've had some wild games already. 2 have already went into overtime. So
absolutely. It looks like it's going to be a really fun playoff. And you guys have your preview show out now yourselves.
Yep, we put that out a couple of days ago. Did all of the first round series. We didn't pick a full bracket just because it gets real messy, as we'll probably get to. I wanted to initially, for like some of the analytics stuff I do, program the full bracket in, and then I realized that means I would have to program every single possible Calder Cup matchup, of which there are hundreds, and that was where I was like, and no.
Yeah, I'll be here until the 2025 season for that.
Yeah, I was like, I think I ran the math. It was like there are like over 400 possible Calder Cup combinations for the final, and I'm like, nope, that's a nope. Not doing that.
Well, especially now we pretty much have an expanded playoff field as well.
Oh yeah, because it's basically any one of the teams in the East can play any one of the teams in the West theoretically. So like you have to have that all, you know. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not. I labor of love as this is, that is where I draw the line and how much I need to dedicate my time.
Exactly. But, you know, I'll tell you, just for our listeners' sake, where are they going to find your analytics work?
So all of my analytics work you can find on my Tableau page. The easiest way to get there is this link, bit.ly/data dump and chase, all lowercase, all one word. If you go to our Linktree page for the podcast, you can also find it there. That's linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. That has all the places you can find our podcast, YouTube, a million different podcast places. That also has all our social media there. And at the very bottom is the link to all of my analytics stuff that just got updated this morning with the roster updates that came out, as well as updating the Bakersfield series probability. Is they're 76.6% after winning game 1.
Well, that's a best of 3 series, I think, right?
Yep, they all the first round best of 3. So it's there's no room to slip.
No, you can't. And I'll tell you, just before we move on to that, I did put that on our homepage too, on martysillegalstick.com, because I put the link to your first the analytics episode, because that helped me so much try to understand some of this, because I think I've told you before. I mean, as far as like analytics go, until listening to some of your stuff, I went plus minus, and that was like the extent of my analytics, because I just, I was never good at math, by the way. So
I think the most fun of this season has been seeing everyone try and do the points percentage thing and realizing like, wow, a lot of us are really bad at math. Like I'm bad at math, but I at least understand like how math should work. And I program the computer to do it for me. So it doesn't make, 3 + 2 is 6 kind of mistakes. But like the number of people who were like trying to galaxy brain just points percentage this year was absolutely hilarious. I was one of them at some points too. So like it was definitely an adventure this year. But yeah, math is something that's helpful, when you don't have to do it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you, I was so glad when the AHL started putting out those playoff primers every day. Just so it was like the cheat sheet.
Like they were useful in some senses, but they were also, I felt like there was too much there in some places where they were, because like I didn't like the magic numbers because it's like everything affected it. It wasn't just if you win X number of games, you get in. It was like, all right, well, Tucson's to magic number to win, the entire league is like 108. I'm like, wow, that just say no, they can't. Like that's kind of why we started doing the playoff graphs in the first place, because it's like I think people really just want to see what are the chances that we make it. Don't tell me 13 is the number. I don't know what that means. How likely are we? And I think that's still a point of contention in Hartford, where they saw that they were like 97 point something to make it on the initial graph, and then they just
man, oh man, talk about just dropping off. Bad. But anyways, let's dive into that North Division, because I know it's a lot of our listeners are waiting with bated breath. So the North Division playoffs actually start tonight with Belleville and Rochester. They have the best of 3 play-in series, and they will be the winner of that will be playing the Utica Comets, of course. And the other series is the Laval Rocket versus the Syracuse Crunch. So before we get to the Comets and all that, let's start breaking down a little bit. Let's talk about the Belleville Rochester series first. What do you like?
Yeah. Well, I think initially in our preview, I picked Belleville, and that was because we thought Michael Del Zotto was going to be there, no problem. That's not the case, and that is that swung things, I think, almost 7% in the model in terms of like who was the favorite there, because Michael Del Zotto does not belong in the AHL. He is legitimately too good. He was like a point per game defenseman for his time in the AHL. Like losing him was a huge loss for Belleville's chances. So now I kind of think I'm swinging back to Rochester, but that series is going to be one that is going to be very close. And it's 2 teams that play very different styles and are looking to do very different things. But I think too, it's like, it's easier, I think, to dismiss Rochester a little bit because we've thought about like how they've looked kind of down the stretch. But it's like, this is not going to be that same team. This is a Rochester team that got reinforcements from Buffalo, is finally healthy with its entire roster it would actually want to have available. And I think that's going to change a lot of, the way that what they're able to do. And they're going to be able to get back to when they were just, racing teams up and down the ice. And I think that's going to be exciting, but I think I'm going to switch picks from our preview now that Del Zotto is out, and I'm going to pick Rochester, but it's close. Like it's a series that is going to very likely go to 3 games and be I could see all 3 games in double OT, something like that. So it's going to be real close. I think our X factor was Philip Gustafson, because he very much seemed to fit the profile for Belleville of a goalie who could just who is talented, is a good goalie, but you don't really think of as being like one of the best in the league and on the cusp of an NHL stardom, but like someone who fits the profile of he could very much just turn it up a notch, find another gear, and carry Belleville through the playoffs. Like, I don't know if you guys watched the Belleville-Toronto game that got Rochester into the playoffs, but like Philip Gustafson stole that game for them. And he's had a couple others this season where he's just flat stolen games. So like, I think if Belleville wins, you're going to hear it's because Gustafson was the guy and he just robbed Rochester left, right, and center.
Well, I'll tell you what, Comets fans don't like him very much from April because Belleville beat them convincingly, actually twice this month. It was Gustafson that was in that for both games, and he was stellar there too. I'll be honest with you. I had Rochester written off when they dropped the games against Cleveland. I'm like, that's it. They're done. But But that just tells you just how close that North Division really was all season long. And I'm going to tell you something, getting Peyton Krebs is huge. Right? Like they needed any more help on offense.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
but like Krebs, too, is a good 200-foot player. He's not like an offense-only player, whereas Jack Quinn is a 90% offense-only player. Like, he plays defense in a very lip service way, and that's okay because he can score at ridiculous rates. Like, I've said for the longest time, I'm like, you can opt out of defense if you can score point per game or better. Or, if you can score 6 goals in 10 games. Like, if you can give me that level of offensive production, I really don't care if you play defense. We can find 4 other guys to play defense for you if you can do that. But like, if you can't do that, or if you're below that, nope, you got to play defense. Like and Jack Quinn very much meets that bar. But like Krebs also is an unbelievable player. But like both him and Peterka are 200-foot guys, where Jack Quinn's like a 125-foot guy. That's fine. He can do the offensive things they can't, and I think that balances out. But there are definitely moments where, like, I've seen him go unplugged controller on an incredibly important back check that led to like a goal and a game that finished them losing by 1. It's like, okay, those moments, maybe make it look like you pretend that you're there. And,
defensive zone, what's that? I'll tell you though.
That's
sorry, go ahead.
Rochester's biggest problem the whole year is that like they're able to fly up and down the ice, but in their own zone, they lacked a defensive aspect that had that kind of lockdown ability. Like they didn't have a defenseman that really played like your traditional stay-at-home defenseman guy. And then they got Mark Ault at the deadline, which was amazing move. Like that is exactly who they needed. Like, or that's exactly the type of player they needed. Like, I still think Mark Ault has something to contribute, but he is definitely on the outside looking in terms of, prime of his career. But I still think he was like probably the best piece they could have acquired that day. That's definitely given them somewhat of a lift in the defensive zone, but they still need, like, Krebs is huge in that aspect. He's going to come back and play defense. But that's been what's been plagued Rochester most of the season is their defensive effort. And they also have not gotten great goaltending, but I think, that's a little column A, column B. You can't separate the goalie from the team that plays in front of him.
Well, they're not getting it right now because they're behind 2-0, according to Barry.
Rochester is?
Yeah.
Oof. Well, there's that goaltending you were talking about.
Yeah. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen got hurt, like, I think right before the end of the season. So it's like they have Aaron Dell, and Dell is still a viable goalie in this league. And he's played well at times too this year, but like, if I'm Utica, I'm rooting for Rochester because I feel like they have a better chance of beating Rochester. I think they're the favorite no matter what, whoever they end up playing in the next round. But like, I would much rather see Rochester if I'm Utica, because that's a team where I feel like no matter what happens, we're not out of the game. Whereas like with Gustafson and Belleville and a much more stout defensive structure, if you go down by 2 against Belleville, you might not get back. Whereas you go down by 2 against Rochester, no, you still have a chance.
Right. Yeah. And you're exactly right. Just because of the porous defense that Rochester plays. And, even if it turns into a track meet, the Comets can certainly have the firepower to keep up with Rochester. You mentioned Philip Gustafson from Belleville. Are there any other players on Belleville that can be a real difference maker, not only in the Rochester series, but going forward as well?
Oh, for sure. Igor Sokolov has been a absolute like coming out party the last this season, and I think he scored one of the goals already for Belleville tonight. I was watching a little bit before we got started here. I want to say he scored one of the goals. He's been huge for them. Jake Lucini has been most of their offense this season. It seems like Lucini, I don't feel like sticks out every time he's on the ice. But then when like there's a nifty play or something like that, or a Belleville scores, and you're like, oh wow, who is that? It's Jake Lucini. Like plays a lot more subtle of a game. It's not as dynamic or as sexy as like Holtz is, but he definitely gets the job done. On Belleville too, Andrew Agazzino. We talked earlier in the season about him and how I didn't feel like they utilized his skill set well. He's still someone that is dangerous. He is still a very talented scorer in this league, but I don't feel like the way that they put him, the positions that they put him in with the way they structure their offense, or especially how they structure their power play. I don't think Agazzino has gotten a fair shake. He's not a good fit for, I feel like, the way that they've utilized him, but he's still someone that you can't just lose track of in the defensive zone if you're Utica.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, Zach Senyshyn has been pretty good for him since he came over as well.
Yeah, that was a surprising move.
I know.
I was not expecting Boston to move him. It seemed like he was someone that they were married to for life, because if they got rid of him, that was admitting that they should have taken Barzal.
Yep.
And like, I don't think they're ever going to do that. I think they're just going to stick in that mistake that they made the right choice for the rest of their lives. But no, that was surprising. And Belleville too has had like a lot of guys kind of come and go this season that had like we thought would work. Like Wilkie has not quite worked out as well for them. Cole Sherwood they sent away, although that one looks smarter now because he really hasn't done much in Milwaukee either. But yeah, Zach Senyshyn's been decent for them so far. I was kind of hoping when I saw him get moved that like the change of scenery would spark something for him, because it just seemed like he was treading water with Boston.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you're right. That's a classic example right there of a guy who needs a change of scenery. Just one last closing thought on is did Matt Sogard come back to Belleville for the playoffs?
Ooh, I don't remember off the top of my head. Let me.
Yeah, because I know he was in Ottawa, and I meant to look that up today, and I just being at work, I had to actually work.
Yeah.
So
what is that like?
I didn't get a chance to look.
I don't see it on the board, so I'm gonna say no. I think in this game that they are not having him on the bench. So if he's not on the bench, he's definitely
right.
It's Mandolese and Gustafson. So if he's not on the bench, if he's not even getting backup dressed, then I doubt he's going to be a factor. Mandolese too, like another goalie I feel like could use the playoffs here as a coming out party for him. If he gets in games, we'll see if they decide to rotate, if they're just going to ride Gustafson. I would ride Gustafson, but you never know, whatever he wants.
Well, obviously, too, in a 3 games, you're definitely going with the hot hand. I mean, if Gustafson comes out and does really well against Rochester, there's absolutely no reason that he won't start game 2. So let's talk about Laval and Syracuse, 2 teams that kind of went in the opposite directions towards the end of the season. Looked like for a while there, Laval was completely on fire. We didn't think they were going to catch the Comets, but boy, they were making it interesting for a little while. And then they really got cold. And in their place, the Syracuse Crunch got hotter than a firecracker. And they actually leapfrogged into second place. So now those 2 teams are facing each other. Let's talk about that one. Who do you like there?
Oh, that series is 2 teams that I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on, and they shouldn't. Like I like Laval by like the tiniest of margins, and that's strictly because Syracuse sent back Nash. If Syracuse got to keep Nash, I might take Syracuse in that series over Laval. But like both of those teams are very, very good, and I think it's funny too because we called Syracuse getting a turnaround a little bit, because when we started digging into their numbers, it was like they have guys that are very good that are shooting like below 5%, and that's unfathomable. Like I think at one point in the season, Alex Barry-Boulet was shooting like 3%, and I remember when I saw that, I'm like, well, that can't stay. That will absolutely not last, because that kid can rip pucks. And then like in 2 weeks later, when I checked back in, he'd scored like 7 goals in the meantime. I'm like, yep, nailed that.
There it was.
Called it. But like Syracuse and Laval are both 2 very good teams. Like if I were Utica, I'd be like, I don't want to play either of them. Can we actually let them play Belleville, and we'll take another bye in the hopes that like
that's a good one.
Because those are 2 teams that I feel like are real dark horses. I mean, Laval has a guy that doesn't belong in the league in Cedric Paquette. He has 9 goals, I think, in 14 games. He does not belong in this league, but like he's going to stay in Laval, and he's going to, probably make a couple of teams or a couple of defensemen look ridiculous in these playoffs. And now that they don't have to worry about Montreal. Their season is done. They are at full strength. They have all the Utes back. They got everything. They're they're a team that looks very dangerous on paper, and their coach, I mean, still a first-year guy, but has at times really impressed me. Although I think the biggest factor for them is that we don't cover them from the podcast, because they are 1-8 in games that we covered them this year.
Did you get the official letter? Please don't call us.
Like,
Please don't cover us. Don't talk about us.
It was, and we said this on the show. It's like, this is getting ridiculous, where it's like every time, we cover Laval, we prep, we watch, some of their previous games, we dig in on some of the player shifts. And it's like, every time it's like, yeah, this team looks great. Like, they look really good. They have a couple of flaws here and there, but like overall, this is a good team. And then we preview them in the weekends as a good team, and then we get to the games and they crap the bed in the two games that we covered. And we have to report, it's like, yeah, we talked them up for nothing again. Like, they were terrible this weekend, and it's like it just kept happening. Literally, we covered them in 8 games this season. They were 1-8 in those games.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But,
well, I'll tell you, the Devils actually did Laval a favor when they traded Nate Schnarr to the Canadians for the Hamburglar. I mean, that was, disappointing to us fans up here in Utica. Understood why they did it, because they were in such dire straits in their goaltending situation. But man, it was, Nate Schnarr is not going to put up 50 points in a season, but he's one of those guys, to me, he's very underrated for the game that he plays. He's a full 200-foot player. He can be real pesky when he wants to be. That's the kind of guy you need in the playoffs, no doubt. Standout players from Laval that you think are going to, if they win, make the difference?
I mean, first and foremost, Cedric Paquette is a weapon at this level. Like, that's
right.
A dude that is going to make a difference. Another one, Rafael, Harvey, Pinard. He's been excellent for them this season. A little bit of a coming out party for him. He had 21 goals this year. Ulinen. He's another one that I feel like, when you look at his just raw point totals, it seems incredibly low. Like, every time he's on the ice, I feel like he's doing something. He is part of the solution for Laval. And he started to put it together a little bit earlier, or started to put it together about midway through the season, spent some time in Montreal and looked good there. It wouldn't shock me to see him kind of take his game to another level and have a little bit of a coming out party for anyone who hasn't kind of closely followed the Rocket this year. I'm waiting for Kevin Waugh to look like Kevin Waugh. He's been someone who's been about a point a game player for multiple seasons now. And this year, like, I would have thought, coming to your home team, home market, like, he's definitely going to blow it up. He's never been more motivated to succeed, in this jersey. And now he's been kind of like just okayish. And I understand, he's gotten shuffled around in lines a little bit as there have been call ups. He hasn't gotten to play, top line minutes, top power play unit. But like, I think he's someone who I could see being one of those like cagey old veterans that it's like, all right, it's playoff time now, and the switch is flipped. We're going. So he's someone else I like. Their blue line is, I think, probably the only part of Laval where it's like, nobody's really terrible, but nobody really is like, oh, that's like, they don't have that on the blue line. They just have like 6 good dudes. Nobody that's,
right,
standing out overall. On top of that, like, I like Belpedio, I like Xavier Ouellette, but like, neither of them are the game changers, like you would say for Paquette. They also, I mean, they have probably the most like underrated, under the radar goaltender too in Kevin Poulin. Like, I mean, that's a dude who started the season in the ECHL, got called up for 2 games in Laval. They sent him back down. They called him back up again. They sent him back down to the ECHL. And then finally they called him up a 3rd time, and they let him, take the starters reins, because they literally had no choice. Like, everyone else was injured or in Montreal. So they're like, well, it's either him or we're pulling dudes off of, the street corner to come play goal for us. And he thrived. Kevin Poulin is has put on a performance this year, and in front of a Laval defense that maybe has not been the greatest at times. And it seemed like it never mattered. He never got rattled. He just kept stopping pucks. And it was, I mean, I know I was a couple times, I'm like, okay, yeah, he's played great for these 10 games, these 15 games, but like, come on, the guy wasn't that good in the ECHL. He hasn't been that good in prior seasons. Like, it's going to fall apart, right?
Right.
And I kept waiting for that moment. And here I am, like 3 months later, still waiting for that moment.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know what? They had that carousel goal going on in goal for a while there. I mean, when you had McNiven, and it was just injury after injury for him. And, good for Poulin. He stepped up and he took his spot on that team, really. And they still have Caden Primo as well. So with that series starting Friday, it's going to be interesting to see who gets the nod.
It is. If it's me, I'm starting Kevin Poulin. Like, that's not a question for me. I have never been on the Caden Primo is like the next logical successor to Carey Price train. I know a lot of fans who are like, no, he's going to be, the next in line of like historic Montreal Canadiens goaltenders. And at every moment I've been like, okay, yeah, he's good. He's probably going to be an NHL starting goaltender, but like, I don't see it. I'm not a goaltending expert. Goalies are very weird, and I never played goal. So like I've had to do a lot of work and reading and stuff, trying to figure out like basics about goaltending. And even with my limited knowledge of goaltending, every time I see him play, it's like, he's good, but he doesn't do the things that separate a good goaltender at this level from a great goaltender. And yeah, he's still young. He's like 22, but this is going to be his fourth AHL season. And I have yet to really feel like I've seen the magic on a consistent basis from him. Whereas like Kevin Poulin has the magic right now. He may not, he may be renting the magic, but he got it. And I think if you're starting Caden Primo over him in the playoffs, that's a mistake. But because Poulin is not really a prospect that Montreal's looking at, and Caden Primo is their heir apparent, I think that's the direction they go, but we'll see.
Yeah, no doubt. And I tell you, anytime I've ever tried to have anything to do with goaltending, be it, ball hockey or whatever, I just pray that the thing hits me. Yep. Because that's my theory. Just hit me. I don't care, because I'm not going to make a save. Just hit me.
I know that.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, Mario Lemieux over here, but that's another story for another time. But I tell you, Syracuse has a goaltender that, in my opinion, this hot streak for them started when they finally decided that they were going to stick with Max Legacy in goal, because it just seemed, because I mean, here in Utica, the Crunch and the Comets played each other 14 times. They're certainly no strangers to each other, for sure. So anyways, with Legacy in, they actually were a much better team, but for some reason it seemed like, especially earlier in the season, they had like this obsession with Hugo Alnefelt, which I can never figure out, but it is what it is. What do you think about that?
I mean, I get that, because Max Lagacé at this point in his career is who he is. Like he's an older veteran goaltender, and like he's still very capable. He's a very capable goaltender. But like Alnefelt is the future for Tampa. So is Amir Miftahov. Like both of them kind of to mixed results. Like Alnefelt struggled a little bit this year, but I still like he has the raw tools to be a very successful goaltender in the AHL and beyond. A lot of it is just, improving small things with him. So like it didn't surprise me that Syracuse was there to try and, let him work through it in game scenarios. That's what you should be doing to develop goaltenders. Sure. But like, yeah, when they started to need to make a playoff push, it wasn't surprising to me that they went with the goalie who was just had better results this year. They needed to win games to get into the playoffs. They put the goaltender in who was, giving them a better chance at that. Like long term, I think Hugo Alnefelt's going to be maybe not a star goaltender, but I think that's a guy who has an NHL future, because his athleticism combined with that size is not something that you can teach. Well, you could teach athleticism to an extent, but like goalies that are as big as he is don't typically move that well. And every goalie coach I've ever talked to and asked about, when it's like, all right, would you rather have the most technically proficient goaltender, but like with a beer gut, or would you rather have, a freak athlete who doesn't understand how to make saves? And it's every time, without a doubt, it's give me the freak athlete. I can build, a foundation, a technical structure. I can't teach a dude to be, 6'4" and move like Superman.
Right. And that's a very good point. It really is. So, I mean, we know all about Bray Bleuet. We know about Charles Houdon. We know about Gabe Dumas. We know about Sean Day, who's had another excellent season. Anybody else on the Crunch that we should be looking out for?
That's a good one, because I've really liked Gage Gonsalves this year.
Yeah.
He's someone who I think has been a little bit under the radar. Like he's another one that has a lot of good raw tools, but hasn't quite put everything together. But he shows up in like spurts where like every once in a while he'll score like some amazing goal. And you're like, where has this been the rest of this time? Like you could do this the whole time, kind of a goal. I think he's someone who's been kind of sneaky this year. Darren Radish has not been as dominant a defenseman as I would have thought he would have been this year. So he's someone, and he's another, another veteran who I could see having that kind of switch in him where it's like, okay, yeah, but now it's playoff time. And, I could see that from him. Otto Sampi, another one that's been very disappointing for Syracuse this year, where he's, I think, been a healthy scratch a couple times. I don't know if he gets it together in this postseason, but like I've seen it. I saw it last season. He was much, much better than this. So it's possible at least that he finds life in playoffs, but I think that's pretty much everyone. If Riley Nash isn't coming back, that's a huge loss for Syracuse because that dude doesn't belong in this league. And I'm looking at it now. He had 10 goals in 17 games. That's wow. That's bonkers. Like that is the case definition of you are too good to be here. Like,
right.
If you put up those kind of stats in my beer league, they would be throwing you out and sending you up. Like
there'll be a security guard at the door. So you're not coming in tonight. Like, sorry.
Right, we're not having you do this sandbag stuff here now. Too, very quietly a good season for him. 30 goals, 32 assists, too many penalties, but at some point, I think that's part of his game. Like he needs to kind of, do maybe some stuff he shouldn't in order to kind of get in the headspace to play.
Right. Well, I can tell you, obviously you haven't seen him play 14 times this year. He is an emotional player. There's no doubt about it. And yes, you can goad him into a penalty. There's no doubt about it. But when you're putting up over 60 points, you definitely take the good with the bad. So with that said, you said you like Laval just barely in this series, just barely. More barely. like a coin flip than anything else.
It is like I haven't run the numbers on it yet, but it's going to be close. I can tell you that one for sure. It's going to be very close. If you put Nash back on Syracuse, I probably take Syracuse then. But like these are two teams that I think are dark horses as Calder Cup contenders. And if I'm Utica, I don't want to play either one of them because they both scare me. Even though like Utica also very, very good, and I think the fact they're getting everyone back is going to be huge for them, and especially with the excess time they have. That's wild.
Right. Well, let's talk about that. I definitely want to talk about that. The Comets don't play again until May 10th. But like you said, they get everybody back now. Because, listen, April was not a good month for the Comets on an overall basis, right? We talked about this in November. At some point, things were going to balance out to the median. It's hockey. It happens, right? But, yes, they were missing a lot of players. Honestly, I think that they had been in first place for so long by so far that it was kind of like, okay, we're towards the end of the season now. Maybe start going to, and I'm not saying sandbag by all means, but I'm just saying that when you're that far ahead, it's kind of like, all right, well, we got the playoffs to look forward to, one of those deals. Here's something I found very surprising, and just as a general statement of the North Division, you think about the Western Conference, and to me, I always kind of equated the Western Conference, at least this season, with offense. Because if you look at the top 20 scorers, 80% of them are in the Western Conference, right? But the North Division, all right, for just as far as overall goals for, right? Syracuse had 242, so they were tied for 8th. Laval had 246, they were tied for 4th. Rochester, of course, we know about the explosive offense they have. 254, they had tied. They were overall 3rd. Belleville was a little lot under the radar on that. They were 219, tied for 17th. But Utica had 246 since they were tied for 4th. So, again, like we said, they can keep up with anybody offensively. I tend to agree with you. I think that if anybody, they're going to want to play Rochester, maybe for familiarity's sake than anything else. But again, that also the tail can wag the dog on that because they also know the Comets pretty well. But I think that the Comets now, with them getting their full team back, and you start getting into that playoff mindset. Talent-wise, they can stay with anybody. And if they play their game, I truly believe they can beat anybody. What are some of the strengths on the Utica Comets that you think can carry them to this division title?
Oh, depth for certain. Like they seem like they have somebody who I can point to at every level and be like, that's a dude who's probably playing, who could play a line up or play minutes up. And they have the advantage of slotting them, as your 3rd line center, as your second pairing defenseman. Like their depth now that everyone's there, is fantastic. And that's what helped them so much early in the season, is like they could just roll 4 lines that can score and 3 pairs of D that can do, a little bit of everything. And that was a huge advantage for them, because it gave them so much versatility, so much. We don't need Alexander Holtz to score, 2 goals a night for us to win. Where like when some of that depth got hurt, some of it went to New Jersey, you started to see that kind of start to falter a little bit. And that's understandable. That's typically what happens when, you lose good players to the NHL or to IR or whatever. But for me, Utica's ability to just roll 4 lines and 3 pairs of D that are terrifying definitely is what is their biggest advantage. And like, they have 2 very solid goaltenders to back them up. This is a team that checks all of the boxes of things you would want. And I mean, we've been saying it all season. That team loves Kevin Dineen to death. They would, go to actual war for him. So that's a huge advantage. Not to mention too, like we said, the Comets have had a stupid amount of time to prep for this next series. Like if they were a little bit around, if they were, maybe not as prepared or as thorough as they would have liked to have been in previous series, which is definitely true in the AHL, especially with Utica's schedule this season. Seemed like it was they didn't play a lot of weekend series where it was them playing 2 games against Rochester, 2 against Syracuse. It was a lot of mix and match, which makes it harder on coaching staffs, because they have to then prepare for 2 opponents in, a short span of time, where it's like, if you only have 2 games or 3 games on the weekend against the same opponent, you're only preparing for 1 team.
Sure.
But like now that you've given one of the best coaching staffs and a team that has that much buy-in in what the coach is preaching, that much extra time to, plan strategy, get into practice and perfect, things like that, has all this time to rest, recuperate, prepare. Like, good luck to Belleville or Rochester, who had to, play through a small war to get to this point. Even like, I think that's a huge advantage for Utica going forward.
Really? Because I actually kind of almost think that could work against them being off for that long, because practice is great and rest is beyond great, especially at this point in the season when you got guys with nagging injuries, get them recuperated. But there's nothing like gameplay. And I think that perhaps, and this is kind of just a shot in the dark, Belleville or Rochester might have a slight advantage by having played, especially if it's only a 2-game series. Now, if it's like we were talking earlier, if it's a 3-game series that goes double overtime each game, yeah, you're right. They're going to be worn out. There's no doubt about it. But the Comets have been off since April 30th. So they're going to have almost 2 full weeks of resting and getting everybody ready. So it'll be interesting to see how that game 1 plays out. It really, fortunately, they're going to be home.
Yeah, I think you'll see maybe like a half period of like, maybe not necessarily rust, but like getting up to speed a little bit. I've seen teams in the past too when they've had those like giant layoffs where they're waiting for someone else, where they will like hold inter squad scrimmages. And they'll just tell them like, this is a live game, like go beat the crap out of each other a little bit to kind of keep that like, game mentality or getting into a pseudo game going. So I think you might see some of that from the Comet staff, just to kind of address what you're saying. And I think that like, that's a valid point. You've definitely seen teams, who've had those big layoffs come out and not look as sharp. When we came back from like Christmas break, when we had that big extended holiday from like the middle of December, and some teams didn't play for like 17 days, you definitely saw that a little bit, where it's like a team that had a game the night before coming against a team who hasn't played in 3 weeks. You saw a little bit of that level of, I wouldn't say softness, but like that not ready for game speed quite at puck drop. I'm less concerned with that with this team, but I think your concern is still valid. I wouldn't be as worried about this, just because I put a lot of faith in Denis and his staff and everyone to be prepared. If we had seen them be a little more lackadaisical when they were at full roster strength in the season, I would say you probably have a much stronger case. But for right now, I'm not concerned.
Yeah, that's like I said, it's very valid too. And Coach Denis not going to let the gas off. There's no way. As far as Utica goes, how about some players that need to make a difference?
I mean, Chase DeLeo, Alexander Holtz are always going to be the big two. It's been amazing to see what AJ Greer has done, especially like watching him last year with Bridgeport. And I was like, when we previewed Bridgeport at the beginning of last season, we're like, yeah, AJ Greer's a big addition. We know what he did in previous stops in his career. He should be about a point a game player in Bridgeport. And then he was terrible. He was so bad in Bridgeport. It looked like someone poured sand in all of his joints at the start of every game. And then he went to Binghamton last year for like the last 5 games of the season. And he looked like a different person. And it was unbelievable. And then this year just rips it up. I mean, he's had some unbelievable games this year. He's another one too. I don't feel like I'll name it. There are guys on the Comets who are like going to catch people by surprise at this point, especially for, most Comets fans. They know their guys. But like, I would definitely want to see big things from Alexander Holtz. This is a platform for him to show that next year it's Devils or bust. And I think Utica has been a different team when he's in the lineup versus out of it, because he is just someone who can take over a game and be an absolute weapon. And while DeLeo and Guerrero have been great this year, they don't have that, they don't have the dynamic talent that he does, where he can just he can manufacture a scoring chance out of thin air, it seems like. Whereas, they're still very good, but I don't think they have quite that high end of ability to basically just make something out of nothing.
Right. And I'll tell you, what's impressed me the most about Holtz this year? I mean, you can have all the offensive highlights, and they've been very fun to watch. Let me tell you, very fun. But the way he has improved his defensive game this season, when we started off in October, we were talking about earlier, Jack Quinn, it was kind of the same thing. Not very strong defensively at all. As the season has progressed, and I'll tell you where I really noticed it, is when the Comets started having all the call-ups and the injuries start to happening, and he was still there. And they were counting on him to come back and back check and play defense. And you know what? He did. I mean, listen, he's not going to win the Sulky Award at the NHL level, but still, he has actually become a very responsible winger in his own end, and it's been great to see. Who else had a breakout season has been very, very fun to watch is Fabian Zetterlund. He's been amazing. Yeah.
Fabian Zetterlund was another one too that we definitely slept on in the preseason when we were talking about Utica. Like, I watched him last year with Binghamton, and I could see, good raw skills, but I'm like, he hasn't put anything together yet this season. Like, he has good raw skills. Him and Graham Clark was another good raw skills, but you can tell they have not put it together. They're wielding a sword that they are not ready for. And that has not been Zetterlund at all this year. He has taken a massive leap forward in his ability to turn raw skills into production and to turn, scoring chances and good stick handling into points on the board. And that's been phenomenal to see. I was definitely not expecting that big of a leap forward for him. Another big leap forward for me too was Riley Walsh. I think there were a lot of people who were a lot higher on Riley Walsh from what I saw last year coming out of Binghamton than I was. He could do good things in the offensive zone when the puck was in the offensive zone. He was a valuable part of the cycle and could work the power play. But man, was he terrible in his own end last year. He was truly atrocious in his own end. And it seemed like every time the puck was on his stick trying to make a breakout in Binghamton, he would screw it up. And that was my big concern when he was coming to Utica this year, is I'm like, I've seen how bad this defensive group, but especially Riley Walsh, was at breaking pucks out last year. And it's why Binghamton was a tire fire. And that's kind of one of the reasons that I was low on Comets to start the season, because I didn't think that he would make these just massive leaps forward, where now it's watching him skate the puck up the ice. It looks like he's been doing it half his life. And I mean, to be fair to him, he has, but it looks night and day like what we saw last year. And that's a huge credit to him, putting in work in the off season, putting in the work in the season, but also another credit to the staff for getting those big leaps out of guys that Binghamton didn't.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I'll tell you, it's funny that you say that, because I've been telling a lot of my friends here too, Riley Walsh to me is really one of the main keys to making the Comets offense go. I mean, they're loaded at the forward group. They got all kinds of firepower on the offensive end for forwards. But as far as defense goes, they need that breakout. Their game is so the transition game, right?
Yep.
Get up and go. And for a little while there, he was in a slump. And you could tell when Riley Walsh was slumping is when the Comets kind of started to, we're not all of a sudden that fire wagon offense isn't there. And you can load up the neutral zone against them and you can clog things up and you can slow it down. And then towards the end of April is when he really started to turn it on again. And you saw what happened. I mean, they all of a sudden, oh, yeah, that's right. We can score 5 goals a game, 6 goals a game or whatever. And you could also see his confidence level just went right through the roof towards the end, too, because, now finally things started working again. And I'm telling you, if Riley Walsh is going to continue to be Riley Walsh and play as good as he can, this is going to be an extremely dangerous team in the playoffs. So we had talked about the goaltending. Who starts game 1, Nico Dawes or Akira Schmid? How would you like to have that problem?
Yeah. I probably play Dawes, but for reasons that are incredibly thin and specious. I think Dawes is probably it seemed like Schmid was definitely starting to get worn down by the workload at the end of the season. And we talked about this on our podcast where it's he at the beginning of April, it was he had played more games this season than he did all of last year in juniors. And there is a month left in the season for him to play. And you could see his performance when you tracked it by month was starting to dip a little bit. And after he put up a 947 in his first 10 games, you're okay, nobody's that good. He's going to come to earth a little bit.
Right.
But it definitely seemed like he was getting worn down a little bit. And Dawes at least seems like he's probably the fresher goalie. Granted, now both of them are going to have, entire month, it feels like, off from playing live fire games. So maybe that's different by, the time we get here. But I think I'm more inclined to play Dawes, but it's, we're more or less flipping coins. I would be not surprised to see either one of them at any point. The other question, too, is if you do pick a goalie and he plays well in game 1, does he auto start game 2 or are you,
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's the thing, right? I mean, not just the AHL, but NHL or any level of hockey. I mean, once you get to the playoffs, you pretty much that one guy one night, the other guy the other night stuff tends to end.
Yeah.
You tend to pick one and go. So I don't want to say either one of them will be on a short leash, but if things do start going south, and especially, I know they're not playing a best of 3 series, but it's still a best of 5.
Yeah, it's not a lot of runway.
That's just it. There's not a lot of room for error at all. So, I mean, I got to tend to think that Dawes will probably be the game 1 starter, but what a toss-up to have, though. It really is. And you're right. I mean, this is Schmid's first season professionally. This is Dawes' first season in North America. So, or no, the other way around. I'm sorry. This is Schmid's first season. Anyways, first professional season over here. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So they've already played more hockey than they're used to. But I think, Dawes had to go to New Jersey. There was no doubt because of what was going on. And I think maybe in the long run, that experience will be good for him to have that. But I think that's going to do a lot of those guys a world of good, to be honest with you. That's huge for their confidence because really, I mean, Zetterlund played very well up there. Ball played very well up there. We don't talk about Kevin Ball a lot, but he was really solid up there. And there's Nolan Foote had 3 goals in a week.
Yeah.
So they're getting all of these guys back, and I think you're absolutely right. There is no real line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4. For the most part, maybe line 1, line 2, those are interchangeable. Yeah. And I'll tell you something. I think if Freddie Gauthier can get back from injury, that's going to be huge for him too.
Yeah, they have ridiculous center depth, and that's one of the other big things about them that makes them such a good team. But yeah, it wouldn't shock me to see if I were Kevin Dineen in this scenario here trying to pick a goaltender, I think I'd flip a coin for game 1. Heads, you're the game 1 starter. Tails, you're the game 2 starter. And I'm going to stick to we're going to play we're going to play, let's say, Dawes game 1, Schmid game 2. If we have a game 3, we're going to play Dawes in that one. If we don't have a game 3, Dawes is getting the next start. And I'm just going to go back and forth until one of them gives me a reason to stop it. Because I'm sure New Jersey wants him to play both as well. They're trying to develop either, both of them simultaneously, but unfortunately only one of them can play in the net at one time. So that's what I imagine they do is they just run a plain, bare rotation.
Yeah. That's I'm sure that's a very good point. That's certainly a possibility. So now that we've talked about all this, I'm going to put you on the spot, buddy. Who comes out of the North Division?
Oh, and
because it's going to be a war. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, I know. That division final between what I imagine is going to be the winner of Syracuse, Laval, and Utica. That's going to be an absolute war. And like I'm trying to because in my head I'm like, yeah, but Utica hasn't been that good reason. I'm like, yeah, but there's been a lot of reasons behind that, all of which are gone now. So it's like I'm trying to that's the thing that's had me struggling the most is with Utica. Is I'm like, they have everyone. They're all healthy. They've had tons of time to prepare. Like this is not going to look like the team we saw the last 2 or 3 weeks in the season that looked good, but still mortal. And I don't know.
Do it. Come on.
I'll tell you what, I'll let you think about it. You can back
take Utica. No, I think I'm going to take Utica to come out of the North, but
he's wearing the shirt. He's got to pick up. Come on.
Hey,
yeah.
I just it's a lot of these series have been very, very close so far. And they've been challenging to pick. And the only one that seemed like it was very one-sided, I picked an upset in. So I expect all of your cohort at Hockey Royalty to give me just get in line to dunk on me when they blow out San Diego because I picked San Diego.
I'll be sure to let them know. That's
I fully am aware of how insane that looks that I did it. And even Cece, when we were on the broadcast, is like, yeah, you're a crazy person, but that's a very different. Yeah.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong though. I mean, Ontario is kind of like Rochester West.
A little bit. They have a little bit more sandpaper, I think, up and down the roster. But their big problem this year has been goaltending. It's been Matthew Palota has struggled heavily. And that is almost the entire crux of my pick is I don't trust him. If you would have told me Garrett Sparks is in net, I pick Ontario in a game and a half. The San Diego just quits at the end of the second intermission. But I think this is an opportunity for Lucas Dostal to stand on his head and show the world that he is probably the heir apparent to John Gibson. And I think that could be the series, and that's why I did it. But everything is pointing against San Diego. Nobody else is picking San Diego besides me. But I fully expect Joe and Radon to just get in line, get one of those deli counter tickets so that they can wait to make fun of me when Ontario wins 6-0 and 7-2 in 2 games.
We still forgive you though. That's okay.
Oh yeah, I have reasons at least. But
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm taking Utica out of the North, but it's razor thin.
It's not going to be easy. There's no doubt about it.
No, and I'm glad that they don't have to play Syracuse or Laval in round 1, just for the fact that if they would lose that series, both of those are very good teams, and I think could very easily go on and beat Cup contenders. But I could see a Toronto thing happening where it's we had this great season and then we lost in the first round. I'm like, but you lost to a very, very good team. That counts for something, but I'm glad that they at least get a series against either Rochester or Belleville where they will be the favorites and should win. And if they don't, that can be a legitimate source of disappointment because they should have.
Oh, no doubt about it. Let's take a quick look at the Atlantic Division because that's obviously the Comets come out of the North. They're going to be playing the winner of the Atlantic. So let's see. There are the Charlotte Checkers and the Springfield Thunderbirds are on bye, correct?
Correct.
And then let's see. The Providence Bruins are playing the Bridgeport Islanders.
Yep. Right now, and no score in that game. And Bridgeport stole the first one.
Yes. It was apparently Corey Schneider that stole it, from what I understand.
Corey Schneider with an assist from some officiating.
Well, that always helps.
Yeah.
And then was it Hershey and Scranton or Wilkes-Barre Scranton, I think, the other one, right?
That's correct.
Which by the way, they don't have Louis Domingue because boy, what a performance. I mean, it's just coming in stone cold off the bench with the second overtime.
Oh yeah.
In the Penguins Rangers game.
We still have no idea what happened with Casey DeSmith. He pulled himself. That wasn't a trainer or a spotter. He literally skated over the bench, was like, yeah, I can't go anymore. So I have no idea what happened. I've not seen any reporting because I watched that game last night, and it was wild.
And then the e-bug in the building's going, am I going to end up in a triple overtime NHL playoff game?
That's like, as an e-bug, you want to get into a game, like that's your dream, but you do not want to get into that. That is not the case. Oh
boy. But who do you like out of the Atlantic?
I mean, the Providence Bridgeport one, I didn't know that Cameron Hughes was hurt for that series. And if I would have known that, I would have taken Bridgeport outright. Because Cameron Hughes is probably the best player Bridgeport has in terms of talent, in terms of like complete package. He hasn't played in either of the two games that they played. And I think Bridgeport is at least capable of winning that series. I haven't been that impressed with Providence down the stretch. And I understand like they were missing a lot of guys. Boston basically, rotated rest in to play half an AHL lineup the last couple games of the season. But like Providence has never been a team that felt dangerous to me. They felt like they were a team that always managed to just hold on enough. And Troy Grosnick's been great this year, but they played very, very well in front of him. Sure. And kind of like we were saying with Rochester, you can't separate that from the team in front of him. And I think that discounts him a bit in my mind. Like Grosnick's still a very good goaltender, but I don't think of him as being at that level that that he's projected at this season because of the team that's been in front of him. But like Providence has been a very kind of conservative team this year. I would have thought that you would have saw more of them like they did in the Groundhog Day division last year, where it was them just, trying to turn on the Jets and outrace every team through the neutral zone on the route to scoring 6 goals. And when you play 2 big, heavy, slow teams for the entire season, you can do that. But like, that's not been their game this year. They played very conservative, very kind of boring hockey. And it's worked for them, but I still feel like they're vulnerable to a team that has a heavier presence like Bridgeport, who I think has some underrated offensive players that could surprise them, especially because Corey Schneider was our X factor in the series. And we're like, yeah, Corey Schneider can steal this series for Bridgeport. Like there is no way that Bridgeport wins this series and Corey Schneider is not a reason, or if not the reason. And game 1 very much verified that opinion that we had, that Corey Schneider is capable of stealing the series. And if Bridgeport is going to win, it's going to be on the back of Corey Schneider, plus some fortunate bounces, plus their breakouts not looking like hot garbage. Because that's been Bridgeport a lot of the year, is their structured breakouts have gone very poorly, to the point where I almost think they should not do the short support breakout that they use, because they screw it up so badly.
Oh, that's great. That is great. But as far as the top 2 seeds, I mean, Springfield and Charlotte both had excellent seasons. Do you see one of those 2 coming out of the division?
The Atlantic is really hard, because I feel like every team is okay-ish. Like every team is good, but they all are mortal in some way or another. Like if one of the Atlantic teams is the one that wins the Calder Cup, I will be shocked. I feel like every team in that division has a reason to believe in them, but they also have a reason to very much not believe in them. Like in Charlotte's case, Charlotte doesn't have really anyone on the roster who flat out shouldn't be in the AHL on both ends of the spectrum. They don't have any ECHLers at the bottom of the lineup where I'm like, how did this guy sneak into this lineup? Like, did he just show up in the locker room? Everyone was just like, okay, I guess. Like they don't have any, pylons on their team. But they also don't have any stars. Owen Tippett was their one guy that was, a guy that didn't belong in the AHL because he was too good. They don't really have anyone at this juncture that kind of fills that, star power need. They have, a roster full of guys who are somewhere between a B+ and a B- in terms of their AHL ability. And like, that's a way to win. That's a way to build good, strong team depth, but they lack that kind of, they lack a serious weapon, a game changer. They don't have an Alexander Holtz that would push them over the top. And I think that hurts them. They also, like with Springfield, I do not like their defensive group on the back end. Like their bottom 4 defensemen really do not do it for me. Like, I don't think that they're terribly good and they don't move the puck well. Like them not getting Scott Perunovich back, even like as a paper transaction was absolutely insane to me from St. Louis's perspective. But I mean, whatever. But like they're also not going to get much back from St. Louis should St. Louis duck out in the first round here. Like,
right.
They get Dakota Joshua back, who's good, but I'm not expecting them to get the firepower and reinforcements that, like, if LA goes out in the first round, Ontario is going to go from like, okay, we have some talent to like, there is genuinely too much talent. We might be healthy scratching on, top 5 pick.
I know, right? It's true. That's very true.
Kevin says Belleville's up 3-0 now with
3-0.
6 minutes left in the second.
Wow. Well then, okay. But it's like we were talking though, that Belleville can just be a very dangerous, and not to switch off the Atlantic, but I mean, just in regards to that Belleville Rochester game, that's what Belleville did to the Comets when they were in the month of April. They just clogged up that neutral zone.
Yep.
And it's like trying to skate through tar.
And that was what we said in our preview of that series too, when we talked about it. Is like Belleville's going to, if Belleville wins the series, it's because they forced Rochester to play dump and chase, and Rochester cannot play dump and chase. They need to be able to fly through the neutral zone,
right?
And that's also one of the reasons, if I'm the Comets, I want Rochester to win this series, because I do not want Belleville to come in and play heavy sludge hockey in the neutral zone, because that's also not something the Comets excel at, is playing dump and chase,
right?
Yeah. To the Atlantic, like, I like Charlie Lindgren in net for Springfield. I think he's been really good this year. I think he's also been someone that's kind of flown under the radar to, your average AHL fan who's not, in Springfield or a fan of a team that got to see him a bunch this year. But like that bottom of the defense concerns me. I think they're big and slow, and that can be useful in the playoffs, but it can also be exploited by teams that are a little bit faster, like Charlotte and a little bit Wilkes-Barre Scranton. That Hershey, I think is going to win that series between the two, because they got Joe Snively back for a conditioning loan. I'm assuming he's going to play all 3 games in the series, and he is that weapon that we talked about. That like he takes an offense that it feels like it's been stuck in neutral for since December, when they lost Molson and Pinho, and they haven't had Axel Janssen-Fjallby for the majority of the year. And like that's crushed Hershey. Like their 7 forwards, their top 7 forwards to start the season in Hershey combined to miss 54% of the season. Like, wow. And then a lot of their fans are like, why aren't we scoring? And I'm like, well,
hello.
Gestures broadly at where are all, like, you can't pull guys from, South Carolina from the ECHL and expect them to be, replace your top 6 forwards in the AHL. Like, that's not how talent works. But like, but like with Joe Snively, Hershey's, has an offense that feels potent again. They can put, guys that were on the top line, shift them down and get them favorable matchups against third liners. That's huge for them. Their defense is still one that has talent on it and can move the puck. Wilkes-Barre Scranton, on the other hand, Tommy Napier is their starting goaltender for this series. And well, like if Domingue was in net, we have a whole different story. That series, I feel like, is much less spread apart. But could Tommy Napier, find magic and in 2 games, stop 40 of 41 shots? Yep. I'm not counting on it though, but it's definitely possible. But
sure.
Like Wilkes-Barre Scranton's another team where like they have a lot of really good players, but no one that really just jumps off the page besides maybe P.O. Joseph. And P.O. Joseph is the riverboat gambler of that team. Like, he does stuff that no one else can in Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and in a lot of cases around the AHL. Like, offensively, he's someone who makes offense happen for both sides when he's on the ice. Like, he is. I just remember I was watching one of their games earlier this season, and he made a saucer pass from behind the net into the slot in his defensive zone on a breakout over the stick of someone, and it got picked off. And I was just sitting there wondering, like, if you're JD Forrest, you go to Office Depot, you buy the biggest industrial staple gun you have, and then you put P.O. Joseph on the bench for the rest of the game for that. Like, and he does stuff like that where he'll just take risks with the puck, where it's like, when it works, he looks like a genius. But when it doesn't, it's like, what were you even thinking there? Like, it's a tie game in the second period and you're making saucer passes on the breakout over guys' sticks. No, absolutely not. And it's like, those are the, like, he was, I think, one of the big factors for us in that series, because it's like, if Wilkes-Barre Scranton wins the series, it's going to be because P.O. Joseph, took care of the puck better and managed risk better, because like he can make goals at either end of the ice based on what he does with the puck. But like, Wilkes-Barre Scranton needs him to be more responsible in his own end with it, because he wants to do wild things that usually work out, but when they don't, very much capital D do not work.
I like that, with a capital D. That's with emphasis. So basically, the North, the Atlantic, is going to be like the North. That's going to be a war to get out of there too.
It is, but I feel like whoever comes out of that division is just basically there to get stomped by whoever wins the North. Like, I'm assuming one of Utica, Syracuse, or Laval win the North, and I would take any of them blindly over an Atlantic Division team, unless you told me like St. Louis went out and found some magic loophole clause to send down the Scott Perunovich Pain Tour, or like spend back and something like that. Like, unless there is a big shift for one of those teams' rosters, because all 4 of them are in the playoffs, or all 6 of them are playoff teams except for Bridgeport. Unless they get significant reinforcements from one of those teams going out by surprise, I'd blindly take the North Division winner over the Atlantic.
Very interesting. So just real quick, Western Conference, give me 3 teams to look out for.
I mean, besides the obvious ones in Chicago and Stockton, because I think if you could just look at the standings and be like, oh, those are the good ones. Yeah. I really think Colorado, if Colorado can get good goaltending from Hunter Miska, and that is definitely an if, like, he's done well, but he definitely is a guy that I think we said this on our show, that I trust in like a Ron Burgundy sense of like, I'm Ron Burgundy. I trust this goaltender. Like, if Hunter Miska can be the stereotypical hot playoff goaltender, Colorado is going places. That team, top to bottom, has all the horses. Like, their roster is very, very talented, and they're in contention for a number of end season awards because of how much they can just rack up points. But goaltending is the weak spot there, and if they can figure that out, they're going to be a wagon. I think both whoever wins Bakersfield, Abbotsford, that's going to be, I wish we would get more games of that, because Abbotsford hasn't felt like they've had, their full roster for more than a handful of games this year. Plus they just got Podkolzin back, and Podkolzin is someone who I expect to ball out, but like, he might not, because he's still very young. He's getting sent to the AHL for the first time to play with new teammates, new coaches, and may, not have the best attitude being sent to the AHL after literally playing in the NHL the entire season. But like, Podkolzin is ridiculously good. He scored last night on a goal. He scored last night to give them a 1-0 lead that ultimately didn't hold with like 7 minutes left. But like, both of those teams, I feel like, are another one where like, I like Stuart Skinner. He's definitely proven to be a much better goaltender this season than I would have thought. We gave him the nickname Moonshine because we said starting him in net was like starting your car with moonshine. Like, it might get it going, but ultimately, this isn't sustainable. And he had, like, that was 2 seasons ago that we gave him that. That was like the beginning of last year, because he had just looked so lost in his rookie year in net, starting for Bakersfield. And then last year, he still looked like someone who had a good team in front of him, but had a lot of warts on him as a goaltender. And then this year, he's looked a lot better. But we're still holding on to the Moonshine nickname because it's fun.
Absolutely.
But between him and Spencer Martin, they're both goaltenders where I kind of trust them in the Ron Burgundy sense, where it's like, I think they could be great. Like, they've shown moments where they could steal games. But I don't know, like, they're going to be the reason that team succeeds or fails one way or the other. But like, Colorado, Bakersfield, and Abbotsford are all stacked to the gills. Like, they are going to be good teams, and I think they could surprise guys. Ontario, unless LA goes out, is going to be a team that I feel like is just good enough to get by. Like I picked San Diego to beat them. So like I clearly see that they are not the team that they were a little bit ago because LA's taken everyone. If LA gets bounced in the first round,
Right.
Ontario is absolutely probably the favorite in the Western Conference then because they're getting Byfield.
Oh yeah.
And like they're getting everybody. In the Central, I keep wanting to count out Manitoba. Like every time I watch them play, it's like they're good, but they never seem to just knock my socks off. And they've had games like that. I just haven't caught them. But like they just continue to, even when they were like running a skeleton crew on their roster because Winnipeg took all their, talent, they managed to get it done at every turn and managed to not just fall to pieces when, they had to, stuff ECHLers in their second line. Like that's a well-coached team. And I feel like I've just intuitively not believed in them because they lack that kind of weapon. They don't have an offensive weapon. They have a lot of guys who are very good, who piece together, like who blend with each other really well to bring out the best in each other. But like outside of their top 4 defensemen, they lack that kind of guy where I can point to and being like, that's a difference maker. Like they have a lot of guys that are good, but their big difference makers are all on the blue line. And while they're important, Leon Gawanke is important, Jonathan Kovacevic is important, like they're still just like B+ A- players in my mind in this league. They're still very good, but they're not like break the game good, like where Michael Del Zotto was for Belleville. But I think Manitoba can surprise people. Like if Manitoba beats Chicago and wins that division, I would be shocked but not surprised. Like I think
really.
I don't think Chicago is the juggernaut that I think a lot of others do. Like, yes, they won the AHL regular season this year. And yes, they are very, very good. But I think the bottom of that defense still concerns me a little bit. And there have definitely been moments where like they've had to have Stefan Nason carry them, or they've had to have Paul Dorowski carry them because the rest of it just wasn't working for them that night. They also have the biggest goalie question mark, it seems like, where Carolina is trying to figure out what they're doing because Carolina has goalie problems right now. And while, Chicago has still got Alex Lyon, I think, on the roster and probably their game 1 starter, if Lyon has to get pulled up and they have to play Jack LaFontaine,
sure,
that's not, he's been fine. Don't get me wrong. But like that shifts things a lot for me in terms of how much I trust Chicago to, do what everyone thinks is going to just be a walk for them. God forbid Rockford, like I don't believe in Rockford, but I believe in Arvid Soderblom, who's their goaltender. If Rockford goes anywhere this year, it's going to be because Arvid Soderblom carried them kicking and screaming to whatever wins they can get. And that's totally possible because he's been doing it basically all season. Like Rockford's strategy has been score 2 goals and then play prevent defense for as many minutes as necessary and let Arvid Soderblom just win us the game. And to their credit, it's kind of worked. And Arvid Soderblom, who is another goaltender in the league that I feel like has been underrated because his numbers don't blow up, as much as like Troy Grosnick's do. But like the team in front of him has basically said, hey, we're going to need you to carry us again tonight. Is that good with you? Great. Thanks.
No problem, guys. I got this. Thanks a lot. Yeah. I've only been doing this for 20 games in a row. Thanks.
Yeah. He's definitely going to have scoliosis from carrying the ice on this year. But like he's another one where it's like, I could see Rockford in the, divisional finals, giving Chicago or Manitoba all they can handle. And it's because Arvid Soderblom is stopping 52 pucks a night.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you, there is one team that does not have goaltending problems, and that's Stockton for sure.
Yeah. Stockton's another team too, where it's like Calgary is not sending them anything. Calgary is going places. So Stockton is going to have to make do with whatever they have. And they've made that work. Like I thought early in the season when Adam Ruzicka got called up to Calgary and it became very clear he was not coming back. And I'm like, well, that's it for Stockton winning the Pacific Division. And nope, was wrong about that one. They have managed to, they've also had some outside of Ruzicka, had very good call-up luck and injury luck.
Sure.
Stockton has not had a lot of its core pieces miss many games this season. But yeah, Dustin Wolf has been fantastic for them, but he's another one that he's had a very good team defense in front of him. And that's not to say he hasn't been fantastic. He has, but I think that counts a little bit against him when I look at it. Like, yeah, he's been great, but he's also had easier workloads than Soderblom or Kevin Poulin on a nightly basis, and I think that matters. But yeah, Stockton has been a nightmare for teams, and it seems like no matter what happens, that coaching staff, kind of like Utica, is one that I just believe in, because no matter what, it seems like, a big call up, an injury, they have to play a 3-3 against a team who's only played one game in the weekend. Like, no matter what happened, Stockton just kept going. Like, they never got bogged down. I think they lost back-to-back games 3 times this season, and that was it. They never lost 3 straight games. For a team to not lose 3 straight games in this wild, AHL league where your team's fates can change on the turn of one NHL player's ankle, like, it's
true.
It's wild that Stockton has been able to consistently just keep winning games. And I don't think they're taking anyone by surprise, but I also think that they are not the clear favorite out of the West or even out of the Pacific. Like, they're very good and very much could win the Pacific Division. But I think that that's sleeping on teams like Colorado and Bakersfield and Abbotsford too much. Like, they could win the Western Conference, but I still feel like that's sleeping on Manitoba a little bit. Like, the West has some teams I straight don't believe in. Like, I don't think Henderson's going places. Like, they might beat Colorado, but I don't think they're getting out of they're not going to get out of the grinder that is everyone else. I don't think Texas does either. I don't think Milwaukee's going anywhere. Even with Askarov and net, I've seen Milwaukee flounder too many games to really believe. Like, I'm going to need to see it for me to believe they can beat Chicago or Manitoba in a best of 5 or best of 7. But like, the rest of the West is wide open, I think. Whereas I feel like the East is a little more, it's going to be one of the North Division teams.
The wild, wild West. Love it. Well, Sean, this has been so much fun, man. Thanks for coming back on again. We just love having you here, because this is right here. We get the whole perspective right here. It's great. Love it.
Yeah, that is one of the fun things about being, me and CC together. We cover the entire league. We've seen all these teams play. We've seen all these, all these broadcasts, all these broadcasters, all these players, all these coaches. We've seen multiple games from everyone. There's only one team that I've seen like only 3 games from this year, and that's Colorado, because when we cover Colorado, CC is their, affiliated writer. So usually he's the one that takes that series, because that would feel kind of weird to be like, all right, you're going to write about Colorado this weekend, but you're also going to cover this completely other series, and I'm going to cover Colorado. Like, that's
all right.
So like, I haven't seen that much of the Eagles this year, and they're the only team I think I've seen less than 6 times.
Yeah, it's like I said, I mean, you guys just have like the complete package. I mean, it's awesome. And you also have a very interesting episode coming up of your show as well.
Yes. I have been looking forward to our award show literally the entire season. I have been like planning stuff in the background for how it's going to work the whole time, and most of it seems to be coming together. So I'm really excited about that. It is Sunday at 8 p.m. I don't remember the date off the top of my head, because I will pull that up though. I think it's the 8th. Sunday.
Yes, Sunday's the 8th.
Sunday the 8th. Yep, Sunday the 8th at 8 p.m. We picked a spot where there shouldn't be any playoff games still going on. Hershey and Wilkes-Barre Scranton, I think, have a game that day, but it's like a 3:00 game. So hopefully by 8 p.m. they aren't playing. But we have 9 awards to give out. Best AHL TV broadcast, best broadcaster, best hockey flow, best goalie mask, best coaching staff, best forward, best defenseman, best goaltender, and the Mea Culpa Award, which goes to the team we were the wrongest about in their favor in our preseason.
That is great.
That's so we have 9 awards, and we actually have physical awards this year that we're mailing to the team, to the players, and to the teams that win. So they will have a little commemorative, glass puck with our logo and the award on it. So nice. That's pretty cool. I'm sure the team that wins the Mea Culpa will treasure that forever as being like, yeah, we have an actual physical award because of how wrong you were.
And have it to hold over your head for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Like, that's the thing too that I think we've always tried to do a good job of, is being accountable. Like, when I make goofy picks like San Diego over Ontario, I fully know that when it blows up in my face, I'm going to have to go on the show and just accept the wave of Sean's an idiot. But like, I do enjoy that. I've been looking forward to our award show the entire time. If nothing else, you should watch it to see me and Cece in ties instead of a jersey and like a hat. So that's that is nothing else
Absolutely.
worth the price of admission. That's going to be on our YouTube channel, 8 p.m. Sunday, May 8th. And we're really excited about it. The Comets do have a bunch of finalists. So we just dropped the finalists for Best AHL TV Broadcast, and the Comets were one of the finalists for that one. So if nothing else, you'll be able to tune in and see if the Comets walk away with a bunch of hardware from us.
Absolutely. That I'm definitely watching. There's no doubt about it. And just for our listeners to know, whereabouts can they find the rest of the episodes?
All of our stuff you can find easily at our Linktree page at linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. I usually don't spell the Calder Farmstead for our show, but for your guys, because it's not scrolling everywhere on the page and stuff, it's THECALDERFARMSTEAD. Calder Farmstead. If you just search Best AHL Podcast, we will come up.
Absolutely. There it is right there.
There we go. All right.
I actually did a graphic. Can you believe that? Dave was stunned. It was
Yeah. I didn't say anything.
And I knew that's how he was stunned, because usually you just can't keep the words out of his mouth. That's it. You guys you're all over social media too, right?
Oh yeah. Well, you could find links to our social media there, but we're on Facebook at the Calder Farmstead, on Instagram at the Calder Farmstead, and we're at Twitter at Calder Farmstead, because the Calder Farmstead was too many characters, apparently. I am still bitter about that. So, but yeah, we and all our social medias run a little bit differently. So like when we post memes, they don't always go out on all three of them. Some of them are like just for Instagram or just for Twitter. So if you want to see all of the goofy stuff that we do, you got to follow us on all three.
Beautiful. Well, again, Sean, thanks a million for coming on. And like I said, I will certainly be tuned in Sunday night for those award shows, and I will share it all over the place, because I think this is definitely must-see TV, and I can't wait to see how the Comets did.
Absolutely. They have quite a few finalists. So if nothing else, you will get to see, us talk about them and praise them a bunch on the show. But yeah, I always enjoy coming on. I will come on anytime my schedule allows me, which is probably not as often as I'd like, but that's the way it works sometimes. You guys do a great job here. I love catching your show when I do.
Absolutely. Thank you. And you guys are fantastic too. And again, thanks for coming on, and we'll certainly have you back on, and I'll definitely be in touch.
All right. Sounds good, man.
All righty. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. All right. That's Sean O'Brien from the Calder Farmstead and AHL Podcast. Always a lot of fun when he comes on.
Yeah.
Always. So I'll tell you what. Why don't we do breakaway trivia, commercial, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
How's that sound?
All
right.
I'm good with that.
All right. So your breakaway trivia question. I'm giving you multiple choice.
Oh, no. Oh, good. All right.
Multiple choice, Dave.
I can deal with that.
Since we were talking about the NHL playoffs last year, I want to know who's won more Stanley Cups, the Pittsburgh Penguins or the New York Rangers? The answer when we come back.
Oh, geez. Give me a break here. That's tough.
Visit My Little Falls and stay connected with the latest news, information, and events in the city and the area. Our mission is to generate interest in the community and connect residents in a more meaningful way by facilitating deeper conversations about how these stories will shape the future of the Mohawk Valley. Join thousands of weekly visitors who stay up to date with feature stories, interviews, videos, our event calendar, and print publication, the Mohawk Valley Express. It's about timely local news for the community, keeping citizens informed about important issues, telling about the people who live and work here, and giving locally owned businesses the opportunity to reach a very targeted audience of locals and tourists alike. It's a whole new form of media-rich content developed specifically for today's mobile lifestyle and listeners. You can download our iOS app in the iTunes store, listen to our country music streaming radio station, or sign up for a weekly newsletter. Stop by today at mylittlefalls.com. You'll be glad you did.
And we're back. And again, just like I always do,
Yes.
that just gave me my second wind.
Ah, good.
I feel like I could go on another 2 hours now.
No. Jeez.
Okay, so breakaway trivia. Once again, real easy. I mean, it's a multiple choice. I don't normally do this for you. Who's won more Stanley Cups, the Penguins or the Rangers?
All right, your dad's probably going to kick my butt if I don't say the Rangers, but
Actually, what? I would that would be pay-per-view right there. See you two on it. That would.
but I'm not going to pick the Rangers.
You're right.
I don't know why.
It was a 50-50 chance.
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm good at that.
Yeah, it's the Penguins.
Oh, wow.
They've got 5. The Rangers have got 4. So, and I segue that because, like I said, last week we talked about the NHL playoffs, and boy, they had a heck of an opening game.
Oh, yeah.
Triple overtime.
Ah,
But, and like we were talking about earlier on the show there, Louis Domingue had to come in and pinch hit there and finish it out for him. But I still think the Rangers are going to win that series. But you know what? I just wanted to touch on all this just to kind of see how our predictions are going.
yeah.
I didn't bring the book, so I'm going off mine.
I thought they were weak.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot. But no, I mean, the Capitals upset the Panthers in game 1.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was a surprise.
missed a lot of shots, but hey, I still think the Panthers are going to win that one. I mean, the Capitals played about as good as good a hockey as any team can play, especially on a road playoff game.
And you were so happy about the Kings, right?
Oh, I'm going to get to that in just a second.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Oh, boy, the Avalanche rolled over the Predators like we said they would.
Thought, yeah.
The Flames edged the Stars 1-0. That was interesting to me. Very interesting. Now,
the closest of the game, or
yeah.
Yeah.
It was a very, very plucky effort by the Stars.
Yeah.
1-0 going into Calgary too.
We did not pick them.
No. But you know what, Dave? This is exactly why I was warning you against sweeps. This is why.
I know. Yeah.
Right here, those upsets start happening. And
I didn't pick any sweeps.
no, that's why I said. Remember we talked about it. I said,
yeah.
no. I said, this is why I don't like, because you could have easily just as well picked, say, the Rangers to sweep Pittsburgh, or whatever. And guess what?
Yeah.
Or some people were picking Edmonton to sweep the Kings.
No.
Yeah. Who won, by the way? Game 1.
Yeah. Kingstead.
Yeah. And since it's Wednesday night, let's talk about what's going to be happening tonight and right now. The Kings Oilers game 2 tonight. That's going to be a fun one to watch. Let's see. Right now, the Hurricanes are up 3-1 on the Bruins in the second period.
Yeah,
you know what? I predicted Boston in 7. It's a good thing I went 7.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say.
And I think I went Boston with you too, didn't I?
You did, but I think you went 6.
Yeah.
So this trend keeps up. You're going to need one of those sweeps.
Yeah. Bring the broom out.
Yeah, right. Right now, the Lightning and the Leafs are playing. The Lightning are up 2-1. And I will tell you, the Maple Leafs stomped them in game 1. I couldn't believe that.
Was it 5-0?
5-0.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since the Tampa Bay Lightning have been punched in the face like that.
Yeah.
And they did. They got, both literally and on the scoreboard. It was.
Do you think that has awakened them?
I wonder. I wonder.
Yeah.
It's a very close game right now. Of course, I haven't been able to watch it because I've been doing the show. So I have to watch the replay. But
yeah, we could put a monitor over there and
we'll have to do that next week.
Yeah.
We'll do that next week. We'll have, you know what? That's what we'll do. We'll have a playoff party right here in the studio.
And no.
Why not?
Yeah.
No?
No.
You're no fun.
If I could figure out how to run it on this back monitor here, we could have the games going silently back here behind us. Of course, then nobody would listen to you.
So. Nobody usually does anyway.
Well, that's true. All right. Never mind.
Oh boy! And the Blues and the Wild are playing at 9:30 tonight. The Blues have won 4-0, so they're up 1-0 in their opening round game. So I thought the Blues were going to win that one too. So there it is. There's our quick NHL wrap up. Before we go, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Roanoke Rail Yard Dogs and especially the Peoria Rivermen. The SBHL playoffs are over with. The Rail Yard Dogs were, you remember him, Ray Chambers, right?
Yep.
They came in as the 8th and final seed, and they made it all the way to the final where they fell to Peoria. But close run on the President's Cup. And, we'll, like I said, I have got to get down there next year for a game.
That'll be fun.
It just looks like a fun league to watch. And you know what? I think that'd be a good time, like in February, go down south to watch a game.
Yeah.
When it's like 10 degrees here.
Anytime you can get out of here in February.
Exactly. Well, buddy, I got to tell you, like we were talking before we came on the air, I'm just coming off a 36-hour shift at the firehouse, and I am quite tired. So I think we're going to wrap this up.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, exactly. Once again, I want to thank Sean O'Brien from the Calder Farmcast and AHL Podcast for coming on to the show and talking about the AHL playoffs with us. Of course, you can find us at martysillegalstick.com. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter as well. All right. So once again, thank you to Sean O'Brien. For Dave the Save Warner, I'm Scott Kimball. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on Marty's Illegal Stick Hockey Podcast.